What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. We're looking at the London game for Sunday between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New England Patriots. We have a 41.5-point total, but given the dynamics of the defenses and the offensives in this game and the fact that it's in London, is there a reason to go over on this total, and how should we build lineups to account for that? And we'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. Today, we're looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the New England Patriots. They're playing in London. We got a 41.5-point total with New England as 5.5-point dogs in this one. To me, Spread, that seems like a lot of points to be giving Jacksonville considering the way that they've been playing. But Spread Astaire is joining me this week. Spread, what's your thoughts on this game and the total and the spread that we're seeing on this?
Yeah, a 1-5 team that could potentially be firing their coach within the next couple weeks is laying 2 points. Seems to be too much. I projected this game as a 4.5-point win for Jacksonville, so I do see some value here on the New England side, and I'm looking forward to building some of these New England scripts. And Simon, I was saying we got to be dedicated to break down this game because I know a lot of people are going to be sleeping through it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, these are the games that I like because I think that we can get some sneaky value in this one. If people are projecting it to be a 41.5-point total, I personally think it can go over that given the state of these two defenses and the spark that Drake Maye has supplied for the New England offense. I think that he can unlock some of those receivers. And, given the state of Jacksonville's defense, the only thing that we might have working against us in this New England that might be, lending to that spread is the fact that New England is flying out on Thursday, whereas the Jags have been there for almost 2 weeks at this point. But what is your take on, the layout of the international aspect of this game?
Yeah, and that's one advantage for Jacksonville. Maybe the reason the line is shaded that way. One thing we have to take into account, that's definitely an advantage for them to be acclimated on their body clock. So maybe a little reason why the sportsbooks, they could have put out the same line as me and just gave them a point for being on the proper time schedule. And you know what? Maybe that's true. If this game was in America, I would be hammering the +6. However, that could be an advantage that's hard to quantify for us.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last week too with the Bears versus the Jaguars. When I broke down that game, the Jaguars had to fly out on Friday. They normally fly out well in advance of their first London game, but for whatever reason, like the hurricane caused them to delay their flight. They were planning on flying out on Thursday, but they ended up flying out on Friday. So they missed a whole day of prep for that game. Meanwhile, the Bears had flown out on Monday, I believe. So they had several days advantage of getting to London and acclimating to the time differences. And then on top of that, when Jacksonville was delayed by that hurricane, it was just really not good for game planning on Jacksonville's behalf. But before we break into this player pool and the lineup builds, make sure to hit that like button. I'm looking for 30 likes to put out a shorter video as we get closer to game time. And make sure to hit the subscribe. I'm at about a little over 1,000 right now. I'm looking for 1,100 by the end of this week. And I need about 60 left to get there. So help me get to that mark. And yeah, we'll dive into this player pool here.
All right, let's start with the New England build, Simon. If we are going to build around New England, originally I thought Ramondre Stevenson would be back. Now that questionable tag is for real here. And I've been reading that they might expect him to miss the game again. Of course, if you do like a New England build, getting that running back right is going to be key And the fact that they price Gibson at, I'm seeing, if we're looking at captain, 12.9 compared to Ramondre's 13.8. We know that Ramondre's I think Ramondre's a much better player. So that says to me that the people at DraftKings making these prices, I think it's a good chance that it will be Gibson in that starting role.
Yeah, and if it is Gibson, I think that that's going to put us in pretty good shape with the New England passing game. The coach has talked up several of the coaches have talked out how they need to get off to a fast start this week in Jacksonville and in London. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to attack Jacksonville through the air. And I think that on top of Ramondre potentially being out, he's a game time decision, I believe, Spread.
Which is going to be tough.
Right. Especially in a foreign country and everything. So I know that he was limited in practice today. So he was participating in practice, but hopefully we see him out, because that's going to get us, I think, closer to hitting the over on this total. And it'll help us out with creating some lineups where we see some discrepancies with, like prices and opportunity, which I see a lot of this week especially on the New England side.
All right. Well, let's build a New England build right now and talk to me about some of these discrepancies. Where are you going with captain here?
I think for captain, I'm leaning towards a couple places. I don't have any ownership projections. I haven't seen any ownership projections put out just yet. I think this is a week where you can go with a quarterback captain in Drake Maye. I typically don't use quarterbacks as captain, but I think that there's a few different ways that we can go in this one. If we wanted to play, like a game script where New England's going to be passing a lot, we could go with Bigsby in the captain. I think Bigsby is set up for a nice game in this one, and then go with the New England passing game playing catch up if you want to do that spread, or we could go with like a Drake Maye and just go with the like the New England wins through the air type of game.
Yeah, obviously, and that's a fun thing we can do on the shows. We can do the iterations of both. Bigsby is a little cheaper there, so something to keep in mind. Also, probably going to be less popular. Talking about Drake Maye, Simon, I thought the Patriots were making a mistake putting him back there because of the state of that offensive line. I was worried he was going to get beat up. I was worried he was going to get his confidence ruined. But you can see why they made that move. And I was wondering, I go, boy, I'm really surprised that Gerard Mayo, the head coach of the Patriots, felt like he was making the move to avoid losing the locker room. And I go, boy, they really need to do that in Cleveland and get Deshaun Watson out of there. However, he must have been putting up really good performances in practice, because you could see the team was kind of boosted there by having Drake Maye in the lineup, and his mobility seemed to be enough to kind of make up for that makeshift offensive line. They weren't rated highly to begin with, and except for some injuries to start. So the Patriots have had one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines in the league. Worried that Maye was going to get beat up, but his mobility was enough to get through here. So I like Drake Maye a lot, and I was a little concerned, but it looks like he's going to be good enough to be able to withstand the onslaught that's going to be the opposing team's pass rush. To be fair, also, Jacksonville has not been the best this year rushing the passer. They are what I consider adequate. They're middle of the pack. So it's not a fearsome pass rush that Maye is going to have to go against. Another thing I want to talk about, if we are putting Maye in the captain slot, is who to match him with. And Simon, I screwed up here during the best ball season because I was all in on Jalen Pope, but it looks like Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas, is going to be a major target here for Drake Maye. So if you have Maye at the captain, you can add Douglas there at 8K. Do you think that's the way to go?
Yep. I think Douglas probably has the best matchup on the slate, and I'm with you. I'm even considering him in the captain. Thing with Douglas, he gets a lot of targets. He's been getting 9 targets a week for 3 out of the last 4 at least. It hasn't equated yet to fantasy points, but now with Drake Maye as his quarterback, last week he got 21 DraftKings points. I think that you add like a few more targets onto that, and that's enough to get you into the captain spot for Douglas. But I like him in these May builds for sure.
All right. So I think we go May, Douglas in this version of a Patriots. Not have to be a victory. A cover here could get this lineup home. Who else are we going to add here? Let's add another Patriot or two and then figure out who we want to run it back with.
Yeah, so if I'm adding another pass catcher for May in this one, I'm looking at Kayshon Boutte. He is
Okay.
like, if you remember, Spread last season, Boutte like had this big catch in the first week, and he ended up catching it out of bounds, and he was basically punished for the rest of the season. We didn't see him again for the rest of the season, pretty much, because he stepped out of bounds. But he was like like a hyped up prospect, or he had like a lot of potential coming into the season, and he was just a victim of like the stern coaching or whatever. This year we see him. He had his opportunity last week. He got I think it was a 40-yard touchdown from Drake Maye. Drake Maye kind of came in and unlocked him a little bit, but he's also been like one of the heaviest targets against man coverage this season for the Patriots, even though they haven't he hasn't played a whole lot, but he's got like one of the highest target rates against man coverage, which Jacksonville likes to run a lot of. On top of that, we've heard a lot of negative talk about Jalen Polk from the coaching staff, talking about him, like not carrying his weight or not, being lazy or whatever. But that all those things like open the door for like a second opportunity for Kayshon Boutte here, and I like this matchup for him as well against Jacksonville, with Jacksonville giving up 29 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, and they're just getting killed out wide, and that fits this profile perfectly.
All right, Simon. One other player I want to talk about was the final player that got into the end zone for the Patriots last week, and that's tight end Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry kind of peaked in week 2 against Seattle with those 12 targets there, but he did have 5 targets last weekend, and the reason he was able to pay off if you did play him or you have him in best ball was he was able to find the end zone. I think that's going to be a good matchup against the Jacksonville team that doesn't necessarily have the best group of linebackers and safeties. So in all my New England builds, Hunter Henry is another player that I'm definitely targeting.
Yeah, and on top of that, Jacksonville's allowing the league's third most fantasy points to tight ends this season. So that makes Hunter Henry even more attractive in a situation like this. Do we want to put a third pass catching option in there before we start to put in our Jacksonville guys? Should we just plug them in, see how it works?
Yeah, because I think that what we've kind of boxed ourselves into if we do that build is you had talked about how much you like Tank Bigsby earlier. So to me, in this New England game script, they're covering, but it could be a backdoor cover where Jacksonville gets out to a lead, and then we see New England playing maybe 10 points behind, kind of abandoning the run and looking to it that way. So we put Bigsby in there. We still got a lot of money left here. So if you are finishing this one off, and I know we're not allowed to give out the full lineup, but just talk to me about the differences between Christian Kirk and Evan Engram here. Kirk has been one of my biggest disappointments in best ball this season, Simon. I was drafting him so much in that range, and now a player that I was passing over in that range, Amari Cooper, looks like he's really set to blow up. So we have our takes, and we're not always right. And me taking Kirk over Cooper so far looks to be a big mistake. Do you think there's any chance that Christian Kirk can get back into my good graces and earn that high draft status here? So far, been a disappointing season for Kirk. Only 24 receptions, only 296 yards, and only 1 touchdown through 6 games.
If we're looking for opportunity, Christian Kirk has a 27% target share against man coverage, which Jacksonville is running at the 4th highest rate. So I do think that there is opportunity for Christian Kirk in this matchup, and I think that Brian Thomas should have Christian Gonzalez shadow coverage. Wouldn't you think, Spread?
I would think so, but yeah, I guess so. It's just wild to think that how much Thomas has already become the number 1 receiver there with how high we were going on Kirk in the season. So if he does get Gonzalez a lot. I guess that would open it up to Kirk. We talked about Jacksonville being weak against the tight end. New England hasn't been stellar against the tight end position as well, which is why, even though we would be leaving more money on the table, almost like to finish off that build with Engram. What do you think of his chances this week to put up a big number?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a build like this, I'm going to be probably rotating Kirk, Engram, and even Davis in there, just to get myself, exposure to at least one of the pass catchers in that Jacksonville offense.
I mean, if you look at Gabe Davis, who's going around the 130s in best ball, as opposed to Christian Kirk, who's going between 40 and 50, he's actually been the more productive player so far this season. And of course, we know that's due to his speed and his ability to just change a game with a couple of catches. But even getting 8 targets last week, we didn't expect him to be a high target guy. Once again, maybe Trevor looking away from Kirk. And I'm really be curious to see what happened in the offseason here, or if maybe Kirk's carrying some injury that they're not talking to us about. Because I'm really surprised. All these other players seem to be better options so far. If we took away the name and our preseason expectations and just saw the production that Kirk had, he definitely would not be worth that 7,600 salary. So I still think they're pricing him high just because they know that all of us know the name and expect him to be good, and we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and to his benefit a little bit, like we did have a couple weeks there where we saw him get 10 targets and 12 targets.
Mm-hmm.
He had okay fantasy production in those weeks. So, I don't I'm hoping that, maybe it'd be a situation where, people would be sleeping on him, or, like something along those lines. Cause like Spread said, like we were very high on him coming into the season. We were very, very high on Jacksonville in general.
Mm-hmm.
But, for whatever reason, like this offense just hasn't clicked, and it just, it's just been a mess.
Yeah, and you know what I've been hearing, Simon, and I'm surprised they gave him all that money, and now it's coming out that Trevor's kind of doing the bare minimum, that he's not the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, pouring over film all day. He's kind of doing, clocking in and clocking out and going home and spending time with his lovely fiance. But now we're getting some questions about Trevor Lawrence's work ethic, and I think that that's fair because of the results that we've seen so far. Another thing, though, before we really pile on Trevor, doesn't it feel like he's been the victim of the worst amount of dropped passes?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is it the way he's throwing the ball? Is he throwing a little too hard? Does he not? You talk about a catchable ball, and as someone who never played wide receiver, right, I can't really talk about that. But maybe he doesn't throw a catchable ball, or is this all on the wide receivers? And as the season continues, we'll probably get a better answer to that. But before I really pile on Trevor, I'd say that out of any quarterback that we watched so far this season, he's been the victim of the most, where it feels like the receiver should make the play and he's putting it right in their hands, and it's simply not getting caught.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's a 2-season thing. It happened last season too. Even when you add in Calvin Ridley on there, dropping.
Right? So is it something that Trevor's doing? That's what I'm wondering. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of weird because on TV it looks like they're fine. It looks like these are great
Yeah.
opportunities in the receivers. So I'd love to hear, especially maybe Ridley or someone that's not in the organization anymore, talk about why people have so many problems catching these passes that seem to be thrown well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is a velocity thing or something like that, but we've seen like Evan Engram comes in and he catches like almost everything that's thrown to him,
Yeah.
Like so maybe it's these pass catchers. I mean, when we look at Christian Kirk, like he wasn't like jumping off the page in Arizona either when he had
Right.
Kyler Murray, but you can make a case that Kyler Murray's just not that great of a quarterback anyways. But so Christian Kirk, he's never really been like, apart from his first season in Jacksonville, like that guy, like, and like he had his second season, like I can't remember what he did last year. I think he was hurt for most of last year, wasn't he, Spread?
Yeah, he missed a lot of games, and we were excited about him. And then, of course, they kind of came up injured again in camp, which is why, unfortunately, I ended up drafting so much of him, as he dropped about 10 slots there right towards the August and and early September drafts. And so far, it's not paid out for me. The other combo, not to derail this too much, I have so many Tua Trevor combinations that are just dead in the water as of right now. So that's why the best ball is fun, right? But it is also tough. So there's a fun way to approach this. Do we want to retry one more build here with maybe a running back in the captain slot and see how that turns out? Because this is a play from behind thing. What if we just get some New England domination here? Let's start with the running back. Do you want to do it with Stevenson or Gibson? But remember, keep an eye, guys, on that deal. So let's just say we build with Gibson now. If Stevenson plays, I would probably put him in there. So either one that you want to do. Of course, if Stevenson's out, it's a lot easier to just put Gibson in that captain slot.
Yeah, I think Stevenson. I think Stevenson would lend it more towards being able to have one of those run heavy scripts. I think Gibson, they're probably not going to lean as much on him to try to grind out a game as they would with Stevenson. So I do think that Stevenson would work better with that type of script. I think if Stevenson's out, I think that's just going to lend itself more towards the maybe they're trying to pass it a little bit more and stay ahead of the Jags and try to keep the game out of reach a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not even sure which one I'd like for a showdown perspective because if Stevenson's out, then Gibson's a slam dunk. But unfortunately, I think he'll be so highly weighted against the field. I don't really know if I really get an edge there.
Yeah, and yeah, basically, like Jacksonville and New England are both giving up the same amount of points per game to the running back position. They're each giving up about 27 DraftKings points a game. So each of those matchups is really good for running backs. So you can't really go wrong either way. Like if you started Gibson, I might think of Gibson more as a flex guy than a captain guy personally. But I think Ramondre, like we've seen his history. Ability to pull off those big games. And he's had like a few decent ones already this season, like the 24 DraftKings points. That might be enough for a captain worthy performance. Like in a game like this, he's faced San Francisco, which is a tough defense. Miami was an easier defense. He had 19 points against them. The Jets this year have been kind of a mixed bag. They've been, like letting a lot of running back points, but only had 1.3 against them. Seattle, tend to be a tougher run defense. I don't think that they're that tough this year, though, but he got 17 against them. So he has the upside in a matchup like this so that he could be pushing that, that mid-20s type of output if he's in and he's healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's a big question around this game when we're building these lineups. So we're going to give you guys ideas. But hey, if you're not planning on getting up early, right, because you need that news, you're going to have to be able to pivot out of your lineup, and that's why we'll go ahead and build this one now, just with the knowledge that hey, you might end up just taking Stevenson out. Let's just say Stevenson's ruled out. What do you think Gibson will be? I mean, I think they priced him appropriately, so it's not like he's going to be just the free square.
Right. Yeah, if he's like I could see Gibson maybe getting, like closer to the 15
35%.
Oh, as far as his ownership?
Yeah, if Stevenson's ruled out, it seems like Gibson ownership would seem pretty high.
I think it would
just
be
overall, not the
overall.
captain.
Yeah. Overall ownership, I could see him pushing like 35. Yeah. Like in the captain, we might see him in that like 8% range for Gibson. I don't think he's going to be as sexy a play as some of these other guys. Like I could see Bigsby, being in that 12% range. I could see, like maybe Trevor Lawrence will be, like a higher owned captain. It's really like one of these games where it's just like the players are all kind of have that same vibe to them. No one really stands out except for Bigsby. So I think Bigsby might run away with the ownership, depending on Etienne's status. We're still waiting on Etienne's status too. Spread, you thought that, were you thinking Etienne's going to be out this week?
I'm not sure, but one thing I am sure of is that Bigsby seems to be taking that role. And if you look at the coach speak, which people love to do, it feels like Peterson's happier and happier. And if you're, you take out the draft status, you take out the contract, and just look at the film they put on this year, Bigsby has been the more effective runner. Obviously, they could potentially split. So it's another one where we're kind of looking where if Etienne's ruled out, Bigsby's going to have huge ownership. If not, and it could be if all the running backs are ruled in, I think that all the ownerships will be depressed. But if either one of the starters is ruled out on either side of the game, obviously the backup's going to be huge. And then the question is, I don't necessarily think it's a free square. Sometimes we talk about these situations, Simons, and we say, hey, you just have to play it and just know the rest of the field's going to be on it and try and do really well with your next five. I don't even necessarily know if it's a free square. Even if Etienne was ruled out, I think that you could get away with not having Bigsby in your lineup, especially if you want to play the Patriots style victory. Like the one we built earlier is the Patriots the Jaguars get out to a lead. But there's also the chance that this team's quit on Doug Peterson. So even if Etienne's ruled out, I'm not putting Bigsby as a free square. I'll build plenty of lineups without him.
Yeah, and that's one thing that surprises me with like how good the vibes were with the team when Peterson joined them. Like everything was, they were all happy and they were like winning games. They won that crazy playoff win against the Chargers. I had a bunch of Chargers in my playoff best ball lineups, and I remember cursing them out. Yeah, but and for it to turn south that quickly. And it was like it turned south when they should have like improved by adding Calvin Ridley on the team. And I don't know what the hell happened between year one and year two of Doug Peterson. Like there was a lot of talk about like the play calling shifting, like from Peterson to the brother of, to who?
Is the name Pass?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. And, shifting to that guy and I don't know why the hell they wouldn't try to fix that, but who knows what's going on with Jacksonville at this point.
So from what I've been reading, Peterson's got a really rough style, and I think that it's wearing on the players. It's like they talked about in New England, right? When they're winning, right? Nobody minded that Belichick was gruff and tough to be around and really negative. But once you start losing, it wears on you. And the idea is that Peterson's potentially lost the locker room with this. A lot of his younger players are not used to being coached like that.
Right.
Maybe even his quarterback, who's probably been told how great he was since he's about 11 years old. So a little bit of a disconnect, and you can kind of see it in the press conferences where Peterson's kind of putting all the blame on the players. And we don't see that often, right? Usually these guys, Shanahan goes up there, after a loss. It all starts with me. I need to do a better job calling the plays. And then he points out a couple mistakes they made, Hey, we need to block better and Purdy needs to make better reads. But Peterson's not starting with him. He's going straight to the quarterback, straight to the drop passes, which I can understand, right? You dial up a perfect play, your quarterback looks like what should be a catchable ball, and it's dropped right in the end zone, and you end up settling for 3 instead of 7. That can wear on you over times. But for whatever reason, this is a make or break game for Doug Peterson. And it's also going to be a referendum. I thought the Saints quit on Dennis Allen last night.
Yeah.
If they get behind, potentially they could quit on Peterson too and just be looking ahead to their next head coach. So a lot of question marks going into this game, Simon. And I think that's what makes it fun for us to build these lineups.
Yeah, Peterson's ice cream, man, it's all melted and it's all got like freezer burn on it at this point. Like it was all good vibes, and like they had taken their freaking ice cream breaks after practice and stuff, and now it's just, like who knows what the hell's going on. But yeah, it sounds like probably that what Spread just said with the coaching style maybe is just catching up on them and stuff. But like they probably, just shifting from Urban Meyer to Peterson in itself was probably just such a huge win. But now they kind of it's kind of worn its welcome, I guess.
Yeah, and we see why bad franchises stay bad. And as much as I'd like the Jaguars to be good. The ownership and the people they're putting out there have consistently been poor. So we'll see how that continues. But the Jaguars are favored for a reason, Simon. Do we want to look into a Jaguars blowout's not out of the table, right?
No.
They've been over there for a week. They're acclimated. On paper, they have the much better team. You look at the pass catchers, right? I got Christian Kirk on one side, Pop Douglas on the other. Brian Thomas is my number 2 as opposed to Jalen Pope. And at this point, I'd even rather have, if I was building my own team, Evan Engram than Hunter Henry, as good as Henry's been so far this year. Do you want to kind of, if we were to build a Jaguars blowout script, is it Tank Bigsby captain, or are you willing to go with the golden boy, Trevor?
I think I'm going with Bigsby for sure. Yeah, like Bigsby just has so much, explosive upside. We saw it already. Like he's the 28 and 29 DraftKings points against Indy. The optimal situation, though, against a really bad run defense, but New England's a bad run defense, too. I had Bigsby last week against Chicago. Chicago, another one of these bad run defenses. Bigsby did not deliver last week, though, due to Gamescript. And then Etienne, I was recommending both those dudes against that matchup, and Etienne just like completely shit the bed last week too. So I don't mind going back to Bigsby here in the captain, assuming and now with Bigsby in the captain, you pretty much have to build a Jacksonville script because Bigsby's only getting used in the run game. He's not getting used in the pass game. So we got to commit to Jacksonville, pulling it off with Bigsby and the captain there.
All right, so we go Trevor, and who do you want to add after that?
I think we go back to like Kirk or Engram.
And let's go Engram here because we've spent a lot of money so far.
Okay.
Maybe a Jacksonville defense. You think they can give rookie Drake Maye some problems? Caleb Williams just didn't have any problems against him.
Yeah, I think given the situation with them, being in there a week in advance. Let me check and see if I see any injuries on the Jacksonville side. Yeah, not New England's injuries are crazy. New England's like loaded with injuries this week, especially with their run defense, which makes me like Bigsby even more.
All right.
So I think if I was going with my next play, I don't know that I want to put the Jaguars defense in there. Like I haven't really seen anything out of them. I think I'd prefer the kicker over the defense. What do you think, Spread?
Fair enough. And I also like a build where you take Engram out, you put Kirk in, and then you can add Strange there at only 2,400.
Okay. So if we put in Little, that leaves us with 7K. We want Pop Douglas is pretty much our go-to guy in New England, right, Spread?
Exactly.
Okay. So 6K leaves us with, like with a New England playing from behind. I don't hate going Henry. I don't hate going. It leaves us with a lot of options actually. Booty, like I talked about earlier, or you could go with that defense that Spread mentioned, or you got like Sly on top of it. You go double kicker. Plenty of options. Spread. It seems like a really easy week to build lineups this week.
Easy, but you got to wait for the news because depending on Etienne, depending on Stevenson, it's really going to let you know. I think Bigsby and Gibson are good plays regardless, but how much is it going to be leveraged against the field? Because if either of those guys out, we know that Bigsby or Gibson will be huge as far as the ownership, and you really got to nail the last 5 slots.
Yeah, I think if I'm want to stress one thing too is study up on those receivers, study up on the matchups on those receivers, find out which guys are going to have the better matchups, so you're kind of leaning more towards them on your own exposure. I tend to like Christian Kirk and Douglas and Booty the most this week as far as receivers that I would lean towards. And I like Bigsby a ton if Etienne is out. I'm hoping that Etienne is out this week.
Yeah, so we will see how that turns out, Simon. But we got a lot of fun options this week. I'll be looking forward to getting up early, having some coffee, and checking out how this game plays out.
Yeah, I think it goes over. Spread, I know you were, and I do like New England actually to pull this win off. I think that the Drake Maye situation is going to spark something with them, and they do have the ability to unlock a few of those receivers that have shown potential in the past. So yeah, and against this banged up Jacksonville, or not banged up, but just like horrible defense. I mean, the situation with both these defenses lends to a potential sloppy shootout in this one. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I'm liking the over here too, and if I were to bet it, I'm going to take the points with the Patriots.
Nice. I like it. So make sure to hit that like button. Get us to 30 likes to put out that shorter video later on. Subscribe to the channel. Looking for 1,100 subscribers and need about 60 left to get there. And Spread, where can they find you and your work this week?
At Spread Astaire on X. Just head on over there. There's too much stuff for me to break down right now, but I've been putting out plenty of content. I'll let you guys know that.
Nice. Good stuff. Make sure to follow Spread over there. Follow us at Heatseeker Sports over on X. You can follow me at Pumacom, and I will see you guys on Sunday.